forced to rob a bank to save her daughter, was justice truly served? In the year 2000, in a quiet town in California, a single mother was getting her daughter ready for bed when the front door suddenly burst open. Three masked men stormed in. They didn't say much. They simply tied up the mother and child. Then one of them leaned in close and whispered, "Tomorrow, you're going to rob a bank for us. If you don't, your daughter will die." This wasn't a movie. This wasn't fiction. This was one of the most shocking hostage cases in modern American history, where fear didn't come from a dark alley, but from your own living room. And what's even more terrifying, the mastermind behind it all. He was someone the police already knew, and yet they couldn't stop him. Could Michelle follow the ruthless demands of her captors and still save her daughter's life? And what really happened after the robbery that should never have happened? Let's dive into a haunting true story where the line between victim and suspect becomes disturbingly blurred. There was nothing unusual about her. No criminal record. No shady connections. Just a regular person living a quiet life in the peaceful town of Vista, California. That person was Breea Renee. A single mother working as a branch manager at a small local bank. Michelle's life revolved around her 7-year-old daughter, Breea, and the everyday rhythms of work, school pickups, and making dinner. They lived in a cozy little home. No debts, no enemies. Her co-workers trusted her. Her daughter adored her. From the outside, you'd say, that's a happy family. But that very ordinariness, that sense of safety, made them the perfect target for a terrifying scheme. Somewhere in the shadows, someone had been watching Michelle. They knew who she was, where she worked, that her bank held over $300,000 in cash. But most importantly, they knew Michelle would do anything to protect her daughter. They didn't go after a mob boss, not someone dangerous. They picked a regular woman, someone vulnerable, someone they could control. And so, the nightmare came, swift, brutal, and without warning. Breea was just 7. She still believed monsters lived under the bed, and that turning on the light could make them go away. But this time, the lights were already on, and the monsters walked straight through the front door. From that moment on, everything changed. Breea was no longer a carefree little girl. She and her mother were now captives in a real-life horror, one that most people only see in movies. But the nightmare didn't end there. Another person got pulled into it, Kimbra, Michelle's roommate. She had nothing to do with any of it. She simply came home at the wrong time. Within minutes, Kimbra was dragged into the living room, tied up alongside Michelle and Breea. She became an unwilling witness to everything that would follow. And though her name rarely makes headlines, Kimbra's calm, consistent testimony would later play a crucial role in unmasking the criminals behind the plot. November 2000. Vista, California. Breea Renee was sitting on the couch with her 7-year-old daughter Breea, the two of them playing Game Boy, after a long day. It was just another ordinary night, one of hundreds just like it. The house was so quiet you could hear the soft clicking of buttons and the gentle giggles of mother and daughter echoing through the living room. Until bang, a deafening crash shattered the calm. Michelle's head snapped around, her heart pounding. The back door had been kicked in. 3 men, dressed head to toe in black, faces hidden behind ski masks, gloves on, crouching like tactical units, rushed into the room. They didn't move like amateurs. They moved with precision, swift, direct, every motion rehearsed. Michelle didn't even have time to scream. In an instant, one of them leveled a black handgun straight at her face. The other 2 secured every exit. Breea screamed in terror and tried to run toward the hallway, but one of them caught her, slammed her to the ground, duct-taped her mouth shut, and bound her hands and feet. Michelle lunged forward, screaming for her daughter, but she was yanked backward, shoved face down into the carpet, a gun pressed to the back of her head. Then came a cold, lifeless voice, calm, deep, like death speaking. If you don't cooperate, you'll be killed. You'll be shot, right in front of each other. In just seconds, a warm family night turned into an armed hostage situation. Michelle and Breea were bound tightly, wrists to ankles with duct tape, lying side by side on the living room floor. One of the attackers knelt down, yanked Michelle's hair, and forced her to look directly at her daughter. He whispered, "If you don't follow every single instruction, you'll both die. The little one goes first, and you'll watch the whole thing." Michelle turned her head. Breea was still struggling, face pressed against the floor, limbs turning purple under the pressure of the tape. In a trembling voice, barely audible, Breea whispered, "Mom, are they going to kill you? Are they going to kill me?" One of the men answered flatly, like reading from a script. No, not if your mom does exactly what we tell her. She's going to rob a bank. If she doesn't, her daughter dies first. The words sliced into Michelle's heart like a blade. The man in charge called himself Money One. And it was clear this wasn't his first time. He didn't yell. He didn't hit anyone. Instead, he interrogated Michelle with unnerving calm. You're the branch manager, right? Did you approve a large cash delivery yesterday? Where are the security cameras in the bank? He knew her boss's name. He knew what school Breea went to. He knew she'd rearranged her work schedule last week to take her daughter to the dentist. This wasn't just careful research. These men had been watching her for weeks, maybe months. Michelle realized with horror every part of her life had been studied, calculated, weaponized, and now she had no choice. Money One laid it out. My crew and I are staying here all night. Tomorrow, you'll go to work like it's any other day. But this time, you'll empty the vault. If you don't come back, or if you mess up, we'll kill your daughter the second you step out the door. That night, Michelle didn't sleep. Breea was still tied up, whimpering in pain. Michelle couldn't hold her. All she could do was gently stroke her daughter's hair with 2 fingers that weren't bound. In her mind, one horrifying question kept repeating. Is this the last time I'll ever see my child alive? Around 11 p.m., the front door opened again. This time, it was Kimbra, Michelle's roommate, returning home from work. She hadn't even turned on the lights when a gun was shoved against her forehead. Kimbra screamed. Michelle screamed louder. Don't, please don't. Don't hurt her. In a moment of desperate courage, Michelle lunged forward and tried to push the gun away from her friend, but was immediately slammed to the floor, the muzzle pressed hard against her temple. Don't ever touch me again, the attacker snarled. Kimbra was tied up too, thrown to the floor beside Michelle and Breea. Now 3 women, a mother, a child, and a friend, were bound, threatened, and completely powerless. Morning came, bringing a new kind of terror. At exactly 6:04 a.m., the door creaked open. Michelle, still aching from the night before, lay motionless on the floor, limbs taped tight. Money One walked in. Get up. It's time to get ready for work. His voice was flat, emotionless. But Michelle knew. Beneath the calm was pure threat. He removed the tape from her arms and legs. Michelle stood, trembling, barely able to steady herself. She walked to the bathroom, splashed water on her face. Her hair was a mess. Her skin was pale. She combed her hair, put on a touch of lipstick, and changed into her work clothes, a light blue blouse, a black skirt, and flats. To anyone watching, she looked like any other bank employee heading off to start her day. Then Money One returned with something that looked like a homemade bomb. Wires, blinking red lights, and what resembled a doorbell buzzer. We're strapping this to you, he said. Both you and your daughter will be wired. If you betray me, I'll push this button. She goes first. Breea had been locked inside the bedroom closet. Michelle knelt near the door, trying to stay calm as she gently pushed back her daughter's hair and whispered, I'll be back. Everything's going to be okay. Don't be afraid. From the darkness, Breea's tiny voice replied, shaky but brave, Be strong, Mommy. Under close watch, Michelle drove to the bank. The bomb strapped to her back, a gun pressed to her side, and a voice in her head, Don't mess this up. I pressed the button. Your daughter dies first. Michelle nodded. She didn't dare say a word. Around 8:50 a.m., a Brinks truck pulled up. Michelle walked into the bank. Her hands trembled. Sweat rolled down her spine. But her face wore the same calm expression her co-workers always knew, the kind, soft-spoken branch manager. She walked straight into her office, signaled discreetly to a trusted employee, then led them into the vault. Lifting her shirt, she revealed the device, blinking lights, tangled wires, and a faint, mechanical ticking sound like a countdown clock. Through choked sobs, she said, There's a bomb on me. I've been forced into this. They're holding my daughter. I need to take all the money in the vault. If I don't bring it back, she'll die. Michelle began gathering the cash, bundle by bundle, placing it into the black duffel bag she had brought with her. $360,000 in total. The entire shipment that had just been delivered to the bank. Her co-workers, realizing something was horribly wrong, quietly alerted the authorities. But they didn't act fast enough. Michelle walked out with the money, unharmed and undetected. She drove a few blocks to the arranged drop-off point, where Butler, the masked man, was waiting. She handed over the bag, turned around, and drove straight back home. Her mind was racing. Is Breea still there? Is she still alive? Michelle burst through the front door, shouting her daughter's name, but the house was eerily silent. Her knees nearly gave out. Until from the bedroom came a faint, trembling voice. "We're here. We're here." Michelle sprinted in, flung open a closet door, and found Breea curled up inside, her eyes puffy from crying, but alive. Still alive. Michelle dropped to her knees and pulled her daughter into her arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Later, she would say that it was the happiest moment of her life, not joy in the usual sense, but the relief of surviving death. She was alive. I did it. We did it. We didn't die. But the nightmare wasn't over yet. The bomb, or what they told her was a bomb, was still strapped to Michelle's body. The kidnappers had removed the devices from Breea and Kimbra when they fled. But not from Michelle. Perhaps it was a final threat, a warning not to betray them. Without hesitation, Michelle grabbed Breea and ran to the nearest neighbor's house, Rick Brown. Rick immediately dialed 911. Within minutes, the neighborhood was swarming with FBI agents, San Diego police, and the bomb squad. The house was declared an active terrorist scene. Michelle stood surrounded by assault rifles, bomb disposal robots, and technicians in protective gear. Eventually, they confirmed what no one dared assume. The bomb was fake. Just 2 painted wooden rods, old wires, and a doorbell buzzer. A psychological weapon, terrifying enough to ensure total compliance. Because under that kind of pressure, no victim dares to gamble with the possibility that it might be real. The case moved into full investigation mode. And though Michelle was the victim, she instantly became the center of attention. Thankfully, she remembered everything. Every detail, every voice, every move. And that memory would become the key to uncovering the truth and bringing the kidnappers to justice. Even after surviving 14 hours as a hostage, Michelle showed remarkable composure and provided investigators with crucial details. She clearly remembered Money-One's eyes, and most importantly, a strange encounter from just hours before the abduction with a man named Christopher Butler. He had come to Michelle's desk at the bank. No mask, no weapons, no crime, just a stream of odd, repetitive questions about bank deposit policies, interest rates, staffing. Before leaving with a woman named Lisa, he handed Michelle a business card. Yes, the man who later abducted her left behind his card. FBI tracked it quickly. Christopher Butler, a man with a prior bank robbery conviction. He lived just a few miles from the branch with his girlfriend, Lisa Ramirez. A surveillance operation was launched immediately. From there, investigators identified 2 more accomplices. Christopher Huggin, a large man with known gang ties, Robert Bones Ortiz, a gang member, and the one who had pointed a gun at Breea. He also supplied the weapons. The FBI knew they had to act fast. On December 1st, they made their move. Butler and Lisa were pulled over during a routine traffic stop. Police didn't wait to catch them in the act. Inside the vehicle, they found a treasure trove of evidence. A BB gun matching Michelle's description, a black duffel bag identical to the one used during the robbery, black gloves, a homemade ski mask, Michelle's stolen credit card, bank currency straps, and even a fake detonation device, a doorbell used to simulate the bomb. The FBI then raided the couple's home. Inside, they found more materials for constructing fake explosives. Painted wooden rods, old wiring, and spray paint cans bearing Lisa Ramirez's fingerprints. Later that day, Huggin was also arrested, and he confessed everything. He admitted they split the money, and he used his share to fly to Las Vegas and gamble. He confirmed that Bones had pointed the gun at Breea, and that everyone in the group knew the bomb was fake, designed to create maximum psychological terror. Robert Ortiz fled the state, but was caught 3 months later in Wisconsin, still holding over $32,000 of the stolen money. He also confessed in full. The statements from Huggin and Ortiz match Michelle's account almost word for word. Timing, threats, behavior, everything. And what about Christopher Butler, the man believed to be Money-One? He sat across from FBI agents in the interrogation room and acted as if they were making it all up. He denied everything. "I don't know who Michelle is. I've never been to that bank. I didn't do any of this." Even when the agents placed the fake bomb with his fingerprints on the table. Even when they showed him Michelle's credit card found in his wallet. Butler insisted, "I was framed. Someone's trying to pin this on me." He even tried to protect Lisa, but Lisa started talking. She admitted she was the female voice on the walkie-talkie. She even confessed that the idea of using fake explosives and kidnapping a bank manager was hers. At first, prosecutors thought her confession would seal her fate. But in a shocking decision, the judge ruled Lisa's entire statement inadmissible. Why? Because she was implicating Butler while being prosecuted herself. Then came June 2002, the first trial. And to Michelle's shock, she wasn't there as a victim. She was being put under the microscope as if she were on trial. Prosecutor Tom Manning opened with a chilling line: "This case is about the truth and this woman's credibility." But throughout the trial, that truth was twisted, dissected, and used against her. Lisa Ramirez's defense attorney launched a brutal attack. They brought up Michelle's past as a former exotic dancer, called her a bad mother, accused her of being in debt, said she was selfish, money-driven. Then came the real knives. Why didn't she try to sneak and bait money to help the investigation? Why didn't she mention Lisa's voice in her first statement? And if her daughter's life was truly in danger, why did she go along with the robbery so willingly? These weren't questions meant to uncover facts. They were meant to plant doubt. Then came Butler's testimony. The man, caught with overwhelming evidence against him, walked into court and told a completely new story. He claimed Michelle was the mastermind, that she recruited him at a grocery store, that they smoked weed together with Lisa, that Michelle planned the entire bank heist. And as if that weren't enough, he claimed they had a sexual relationship. No proof, no witnesses, but his story was entered into the official record. After 5 days of deliberation, the jury returned with a shocking verdict. Butler was convicted of robbing the bank and kidnapping Breea and Kimbra. But they could not agree on the charge of kidnapping Michelle. Only 9 of the 12 jurors voted guilty, and that wasn't enough. Even more stunning, Lisa Ramirez was found not guilty on all charges, even though she admitted she had come up with a fake bomb plan and was considered the brains of the operation. Months later, Huggin and Ortiz were tried. No high-priced lawyers, no courtroom tricks, just confessions and cold, hard facts. This time, justice prevailed. Both were convicted without resistance. Michelle had survived the bank robbery, survived being strapped with a fake bomb, survived being falsely accused. But what no one could see was that the nightmare hadn't ended. It had simply moved inside her, and inside Breea too. For 2 years after the incident, both mother and daughter battled PTSD, panic attacks, night terrors, and a constant, creeping sense that they would never be truly safe again. Michelle came to a crossroads. She could sink into rage and blame the people who had destroyed her life. Or she could take her scars and turn them into a weapon. She chose the latter. Michelle sought therapy, and instead of hiding, she spoke out. She wrote a book, not to relive the pain, but to expose it, to reclaim control from the people who had tried to steal it. Her story was eventually turned into a film. She and Breea began speaking publicly, sharing their journey through trauma, not as victims but as survivors. It wasn't an easy decision, but both of them believed that speaking out helped them heal, and more importantly, helped others see that when terrible things happen, it doesn't have to be the end. You can survive. And not just survive, but come back stronger. By 2011, Michelle had truly rebuilt her life. Breea had become a vibrant, energetic high school senior, a competitive cheerleader with a bright future. They were finally living the life they once dreamed of. But then life struck again. In December 2011, during her senior year of high school, Breea started feeling off. She dropped things, struggled to speak. Her left leg wouldn't lift off the ground. "Mom, something's really wrong. I'm scared." Michelle rushed her to the hospital. Within hours, Breea lost the ability to speak. She went blind in one eye, and her body was paralyzed on one side. The next morning, she was diagnosed with acute multiple sclerosis, a rare, aggressive autoimmune disease in someone so young. Doctors warned that she might never walk or talk again. Her world fell apart again. She had been a lively teenager, dreaming of college and cheerleading. Now, it all seemed to vanish in an instant. But somehow, that childhood trauma at age 7 had forged something inside her. Breea spent 6 weeks in the hospital, undergoing physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy 2 to 3 times a day. She relearned how to talk, how to walk, and how to fight for every step forward. From her wheelchair, Breea wrote her college admissions essay, boldly declaring, "I will be the first person in my family to graduate from college." Michelle, once the victim, became her daughter's full-time caregiver, standing beside her for 2 full years. And Breea beat the odds once again. Though her MS flared up 3 times during her first year in college, she didn't stop. She kept going. Today, Breea stands as a living testament to the power of human resilience. A real-life example of what it means to fight not once, but over and over and win. Nearly 20 years after the crime, in June 2020, Christopher Butler appeared at a parole hearing. There, prosecutor Tom Manning confronted him directly about the lies he had told under oath years before. And finally, Butler confessed. He admitted there was no romantic relationship with Michelle. No conspiracy. Michelle was not an accomplice. He had lied, and now he was taking it all back. Michelle described that moment as a bittersweet victory. Because yes, the truth had finally been spoken aloud. But the cost? More than 20 years of public doubt, brutal courtrooms, and a youth defined by trauma. What stunned people most wasn't the confession, it was Michelle and Breea's response. They forgave him, not because he deserved it, but because they needed peace. And even more remarkably, for the 2 other men, Huggin and Ortiz, who had apologized and taken responsibility, Michelle and Breea wrote letters of support, encouraging them if they truly sought redemption. Especially Robert Ortiz, the man who once pointed a gun at Breea. At his sentencing, he turned to Michelle and said, "I'm sorry." Years later, at his own parole hearing, it was Breea who spoke in his defense. 2 decades after the crime, Michelle published a second book, 9 Days, a memoir about a healing journey she took to Alaska, where she finally found strength to face her past with peace. Today, she and Breea live in quiet contentment, and they regret nothing, not even the kidnapping, because they believe, truly, that it brought them closer together, that it shaped their bond, and made them into the extraordinary women they are today. All right, let's take a breath. After everything you've just heard, the bank robbery, the fake bomb, the fight to survive, and Michelle and Breea's incredible journey back from the edge, it's time to look at something just as disturbing, the justice system. More specifically, the cracks in that system. The quiet ones that are big enough to swallow the truth whole. Let's go back to 2002. Michelle, a woman who had been strapped with a fake bomb and forced into a bank robbery, walked into the courtroom as a witness. But after just a few questions, everything flipped. She was no longer treated like a victim, but like a suspect who had to defend her own innocence. They questioned her about a voice on a walkie-talkie. Michelle identified it as Lisa Ramirez. But Lisa's defense attorney fired back. "Why didn't you tell the FBI that from the beginning?" They criticized her for not slipping in bait money during the robbery, a detail that had no legal bearing on the crime, but was enough to plant doubt in the jury's mind. And then came the worst of it. They dragged up her past as a former exotic dancer. And just like that, the truth of the case was no longer the focus. The new question became, can a woman like her even be trusted? That courtroom stopped being a place for justice and became a stage where the character of a mother who survived a bomb and kidnapping was torn apart in front of people who'd never lived through anything like it. Yes, our system demands scrutiny. Yes, defense attorneys have a job to do. Yes, we should protect the rights of the accused. But when lawyers are allowed to weaponize a woman's past or question her instinct to protect her child just to sway a jury, then you have to ask, is justice still about truth? Or is it just about who tells the better story? And the most horrifying part? Lisa Ramirez, the woman who planned the heist, designed the fake bomb, and was called the brains of the operation by her own accomplices, was found not guilty on all counts. Meanwhile, Michelle, the woman who was threatened, forced, deceived, had to sit in that courtroom and listen to Christopher Butler say she was the mastermind. No evidence, no logic, just the word of a criminal. And the court took it seriously. It took nearly 20 years for Butler to finally admit that he made it all up. And even then, it was only because he wanted parole. So no, this isn't just a kidnapping story. It's a warning. A reminder that sometimes in this system, victims have to prove they're not guilty. A personal past can weigh more than hard evidence, and truth doesn't win right away. It has to wait. Sometimes for decades. So here's the question I leave you with. If Michelle hadn't been strong enough, hadn't written a book, hadn't spoken out, would the truth have ever come to light? You might think this was a rare case, a fluke in the system. But think harder. How many Michelles are out there? How many survivors get dragged through courtrooms and stripped of their dignity? How many truths are distorted by lawyers, delayed by red tape, or buried under bias? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe stories like this matter, hit subscribe and follow us for more true cases that challenge what justice really means. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.